Welcome back, everybody, to another episode, another lesson within this TLDR of Life course. We're continuing with lesson 5 of why do I believe what I believe. So this is the second life domain question, and I believe this is part 5 within lesson 5. So I'm going to continue reading from my blog, from my journal, about journaling about these deep topics. So I'm going to continue sharing my screen here and continuing reading. From March 12th, 2022, why do I believe that company over individual success leads to a positive work culture? Why do I believe that a healthy work culture is helped by the belief that company success is greater than individual success? I've been parts of teams and organizations from a young age, which is vital to the belief that I believe in a greater cause. It can be as simple as a win, if it's a sport, but that the team win is better than the merely individual accolades. Being a part of Budgeons is also a team. You have to have the lead vocal, chorus, instrumentalist, devotional coordinator, and more to make it happen. Each have a role to play to make it a high-energy session. The interesting thing here is that I've also been drawn to individual games and sports like chess, tennis, geography, and more. But even these have team components to it too. If I believe that what we look for as adults is what we lacked as children, then am I drawn more to a team success now because I didn't have that as much compared to individual success in childhood? GPA and test scores are an individual metric. I had above average of those, but were my teams growing up below average? Maybe I've over-indexed on that now as an adult, wanting to sacrifice my personal achievements for team gain. However, how do I reconcile the fact that I should imbibe a virtue of sacrifice to a greater cause with not losing the connection to myself in that process? How do I have both individual and team success? Mostly within sports. Right? In the workplace, the interactions and decisions made reflect that they're willing to do whatever at the expense of the team. The thing is, I think when some people over-index on the individual, they believe that team success is mutually exclusive from individual success, but they're one and the same, I believe. It'll be good to get a gauge of where each person stands on the scale of individual to balance to collective success. Individual success may lead to team success, and it may not. So why does that happen? I think the simplest answer is because there are factors at play that make one go up when the other goes down, and vice versa. So I think it comes back to systems. This is the integration and cohesiveness OS KPIs. If it's truly a great system, then if the individual has success, then it should be as directly related to team success as possible, and vice versa. So measuring our organization's systemic integration holistically and granularly will give us insight into how in sync these are. Next one. This is a longer one, so buckle up. Why do I believe that not embracing mistakes can lead to a toxic workplace culture? March 13th. Why do I believe that a culture that doesn't embrace making mistakes can be a toxic workplace? I've come at this from the individual and hiring perspective, but this is more of from a team culture side. If we can't make mistakes, then there's a perfection standard that's unrealistic to strive towards. I think I believe it because of my experiences at workplaces. At 2U, it's perfectly reasonable and expected to make mistakes, and almost encouraged, so we can learn. It's just data points. I didn't always have this mindset. Growing up, I think I thought that I had to be perfect. The school setting and structure instills that mindset, that there's a quantifiable correct and incorrect way of doing things, that there are right answers. In STEM-related fields, sure, the answer is convergence, but in other areas, they are divergent, and that's what I'm doing more of now professionally. It's not just the quantifiable part, though. It's that people were made to feel better than or less than based off those scores. The scores became a part of your personality and even your identity. I am smart because I got a 4.0 GPA. I am dumb because I got a C in this class. The thing is, there wasn't as much, at least to my knowledge, some version of a performance improvement plan at school for people who did get lower grades. If you got a lower grade on an assignment or a test or a class, you just kept moving on without addressing it fully. And then especially when you start compounding the topics, then of course the people who haven't mastered the basics yet will be even more behind. School wasn't as much a toxic place for me, but I obviously know some reasons why they were for others. And a big piece of that is the attitude towards making mistakes. I was taught through my parents academically to focus on the glass half empty. That even if I got a 95% on something, then the first comment was, what happened to the other 5%? There was no negative intention there, but when you keep focusing on only the areas for improvement, then it can become draining. I can feel like I don't want to open up about mistakes because I know what they'll say. I will feel judged. It didn't foster an open relationship. I believe it has to be a both glass half full and half empty approach. Both things are true at the same time. The non-dualistic approach to this situation. It wasn't a toxic relationship with the parents, but it could have been more growing up. If we play it forward and go deeper, then any misconstruction of this may be because of the belief of right and wrong. This fundamental belief exists in basically everything. That there's a right way to do something and a wrong way to do something. What if we approach one of these wrong ways as a right way that hasn't been done yet? Even in a convergent setting like a math problem, what if the student or a teacher keep exploring that route? That way, they'll at least learn to go deeper in whatever they're doing. Standing up and doing problems publicly at the front of the classroom and potentially making a mistake would have been embarrassing. I think I had too high of an ego or view of myself back then, mostly due to my high grades and scores. So I had a certain reputation that I was a smart student who rarely makes mistakes. Then that association went into my identity layer. And when I would make mistakes, that wouldn't align with my beliefs about myself. The math problem example above can apply more to higher level math. But what about early childhood math? Like two-digit addition and subtraction, or multiplication with 20 and less than 400 division. Those whiteboard races of who could complete problems quicker was not a great imprint looking back. There would be a winner and a loser. That's not a great way to teach kids that it's okay to make mistakes. I think it could have been more collaborative. I think an ideal ratio of type of activity is 40 to 50% individual, 40 to 50% collaborative, and 10% competitive. I think it's still valuable to have some sort of friendly competition, but that should be very low time and energy-wise. Instead, focusing on the student making any growth should be commended and celebrated. But then comes the question of how can you measure growth if not quantitatively? Doesn't that have to be quantifiable in some way? I think some things have to be quantifiable and some things don't have to be. It's when we fit everything into a discrete rationality that causes the continuous to lose its beauty. I think one reason behind this belief is the saying, seeing is believing, that everything has to be proven scientifically and physically. Growth is not just seen, it's felt. It's at the deepest level, part of who we've become. What we do is just a result of who we are. So we've taken the scientific revolution and advancement to one extreme end of the spectrum. We've limited who we are and what we do, since that's what can be scientifically and mathematically proven. And then we've equated who we are to only what we do. But that's just one dimension of us. So what if we didn't try to qualify that type of growth or quantify that type of growth? It's more of a feeling. So we should be teaching teachers more about using feelings and intuition to guide their classes. In addition to numbers to quantify what is necessary, there has to be a balance, an equilibrium. We've gone too far on the spectrum of rationalization. We think that science and religion are at two opposite ends of the spectrum. It's always posed as science versus religion. But what if we think about science as a religion? Our religion has become science-based. everything has to be proven or replicated or improved. That it can be a balance on the spectrum between faith-based religion to science-based religion. If you make a decision that's solely based on faith without any rationality, then you're labeled as crazy and delusional. But how come we don't say the same thing on the other end with having everything backed scientifically or mathematically to make a decision? Aren't they just two sides of the same coin? With the advancement of tech, it's just become the societal norm to base everything factually and dismiss anything that can't be proven. Going even a level deeper is the question-answer spectrum. That is one of the deepest roots, if not the deepest root, of all science and math and rationality. Science explains things rationally. Explanation is a result of asking a question. So when we ask a question, we're expecting a directly correlated answer. That's what science is, right? We think that the question and answer are two separate things. But again, a non-dualistic approach would mean that the question and answer are really just two different forms of the same thing. We're expecting a one-to-one relationship with the question and answer. This is the answer to this question, applied on an infinite scale. We've, I think, tried to organize the universe in our minds as many one-to-one relationships, when actually it's just a single many-to-many relationship. Faith-based religion, generally speaking, is many-to-one or one-to-many, depending on how you look at it. Science-based religion is looking at it one-to-one. Combining both, though, you can see, quote-unquote, that it's many-to-many. This perspective is a one-to-many relationship. But if you look at this from the side, then it's a one-to-one relationship, right? So there's a picture in the journal. However, there are more invisible relationships that we can't see with our eyes, but we can feel. Saying one of these is the right answer is both right and wrong. From one perspective, you're right. From another perspective, you're wrong. From yet another perspective, it's both and neither. This causes it to be many to many when you combine both aspects of it, which is the balanced approach on this spectrum. Faith-based religion organized it as many-to-one relationship with the many people to one God or higher power. Science-based religion organized it as a one-to-one relationship. It's two perspectives on the same thing. It's like looking at an ice cream cone. One angle will look like a circle, one angle will look like a triangle, another one might look like a teardrop, and so on. But it's all really the same. But by extrapolating and forcing the entire universe into a series of one-to-one relationships, we've limited what the universe actually is. Even in this journaling, it's a microcosm of the macrocosm. I asked one question, and you were probably expecting to get an answer to that one question. However, I answered many questions along the way, both asked and unasked. This is a playing out in real time of a many-to-many relationship. So in the end, the question is the answer. And the answer is the question. If you feel perplexed or repulsed by the fact that I didn't answer the original question with a direct answer or with a bulleted summary, then maybe it's time to dig deeper into your own beliefs about questions, answers, and the potential dogmatism towards science and rationality. All right, I think we can fit this one in here, maybe. All right, next one. Why do I believe genuineness is more important than being nice for a healthy work culture? March 20th, 2022. Why do I believe that genuineness is more important to a healthy work culture than being nice? Nice in this context, to me, is almost like peace. You don't want there to be any disagreements or differences. Of course, there are and should be disagreements in any business. I think otherwise, that's a sign of not looking at things from different perspectives. If everyone has the same perspective, then either you may need more diverse individuals or create an environment where it's more conducive to have disagreements in a civil way. If I believe that work is a way for me to express my full self, which I've already established, then being genuine, I would say, rolls up to that. Looking at it like peace there is positive peace and negative peace. Negative peace is not talking about our differences and just agreeing on everything just to do that. I think it's based from a place of fear, that I don't want to disagree with anyone because I may feel rejected, my idea is not accepted, consequences for my career, etc. Nice is an umbrella term that has many contexts and variations, so I should be more specific with my diction when I do use it. Positive peace, on the other hand, is recognizing and celebrating our differences as a way to find a middle ground. I think it's based from a place of love. I truly understand your differences because I've heard you. I want to learn how you think and what you're feeling. I will not judge. I hope you can do the same when I share as well. All of our perspectives and perceptions are valid, so let's find a way to find the overlap of our beliefs and be better versions of ourselves. Something like that. I think, again, it comes back to the one-to-one relationship that are ingrained in our everyday life. If we believe that there's a right and wrong, then something can only be right or wrong at the same time. When expanded to this context, if you have that belief, then there is no room to be both right and wrong. I think a better way to think about it is my perspective is one thing, and someone else's perspective is another, and those are both correct. I think another reason why I believe regarding the original question is the fact that we compartmentalize our life into discrete buckets. Of course, that's what I'm doing with my life domains. But instead of viewing them as buckets, I can view them in a more fluid manner. Because when we compartmentalize discretely with work, personal, social, etc., we can only be a certain personality in certain contexts. Work is from 9 to 5 p.m. Family time is from 7 to 8 p.m., etc. Those are great ways to get started. I think of categorizing things, but I don't think we should draw those lines in stone. They should be malleable and ultimately part of our identity. How this relates back to being nice versus genuine is nice may imply being a certain persona externally to achieve a certain thing, versus genuine being a certain person internally whose reflections are just externalized. Also, by compartmentalizing, we're associating one-to-one again, that this setting is one me and another setting is another me, that you get one person at work and another person outside of work, and that those can't overlap, that you can't be your true self at work. So it's one persona at work and one persona for life. And when that one persona at work is nice but not necessarily genuine, that can lead to things not expressed, criticism withheld, and a lot more impacts on the person's mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health. So I'm not implying not being nice here. I'm saying, where is the intention coming from? If it's genuine nicety, then I think being genuine will naturally allow you to be nice. So be genuine and nice. This last week, the more and more I think about it, this one-to-one relationship pervades society and limits our thinking to what we can achieve. I think exploring this topic may be one of the books that I publish at some point. Going to Jordan Peterson's definition of depth of how many other beliefs are based on another, I think this one-to-one mindset is so ingrained in us that it might be one of the deepest things we subconsciously believe. Creativity is stifled because we associate only one thing to another, when in actuality, everything is associated with another. I think that's why something like the butterfly effect is so hard to grasp for people. They want a one-to-one cause-effect relationship between everything, boiled down to simple points that can be explained with 1 to 3 sentences. Life is more complex than that, and yet, somehow more simple. Who knows? So, those were 3, I think, in-depth journaling times and blog posts. So feel free to read that. Feel free to take a look at the pictures that were published on the blog. But this was just part 5 of this lesson 5. So I'm going to be continuing to go through, and I'm still writing these why do I believe what I believe journaling. So this is a long but truly deep process that I'm following here, and I hope you're doing the same. So thank you for listening and watching and reading along. I will see you in the next lesson and next part.